Now, to this report, community leaders and non-profit organisations are urging the National Prosecuting Authority to tighten statutory rape laws. This comes in the wake of reports that children as young as 10 have fallen pregnant in the last year, with KwaZulu-Natal recording over 26,000 pregnancies of young girls between the ages of 10 and 19. Let's get some analysis now with Ntombi Matjila, Registrar for the National Register for Sexual Offences, Department of Justice and Constitutional Development. Ntombi, good evening. I appreciate your time. Now, you talk about tightening the laws again around statutory rape, but sex with a minor, a 10-year-old, is not statutory rape. It's rape, is it not?
It is statutory rape. It is rape. You are right. Either way, because when we look into how the law defines statutory rape, it's having an unlawful sexual intercourse with a minor who is below the age of 18 years. So you can be charged with rape, but if it is between yourself as an adult person and a minor, then it is statutory rape.
So let me get this right. If a 30-year-old man rapes a 10-year-old, and if a 30-year-old man rapes a 17-year-old, then the sentence is the same, or the outcome.
The same, because both are under the age of 18.
I'm in shock if you allow me to be, because I think, you know, when you talk about a 10-year-old, this is innocence. You know, 10-year-olds really don't know what is going on. And we take a look at the recent reports on teenage pregnancies, particularly among girls as young as the 10 that we speak of. You've raised significant concerns. Now, what specific actions and measures do you believe the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development should take? Sorry, Ntombi, I think you've gone and muted yourself somehow.
I apologize. As the custodian of the National Register for Sex Offenders, these are the measures that will follow as soon as a person gets convicted of committing that particular sexual offense against a minor or against any vulnerable person that is defined in terms of the Amendment Act. The Sexual Offences Amendment Act. So as the custodian and the repository that we keep in the Department of Justice is to ensure that every other individual that gets convicted of committing sexual offences against children or vulnerable persons, their name gets included in the National Register for Sex Offenders. The objective being they will not be allowed to work with children or be in a place where children are congregate or exercise any supervisory position over the children or vulnerable persons.
Now, I'm interested to know what sort of individual abuses a 10-year-old. Do we have a statistic on this? Is it individuals? Is it young boys? Is it 14-year-old, 15-year-old boys? Or is it just pedophilia based on men, grown men, that are abusing these young children?
It is pedophilia, not only based on men, because sexual offences follows many forms. For example, you'll have women that are sexually grooming boy children. You will have women also that are exposing those young boys or young children, irrespective of gender, to pornographic material. Because once the definition of rape was increased, it included all other forms of sexual offences which were not recognized as such in the past.
Ntombi, how do we rate globally or across a continent when it comes to these statistics? I mean, they're absolutely alarming, but where do other countries on the continent around the world stand?
We have not made that study yet, but if I can speak for our own, it is such an alarming number, because currently the National Register for Sex Offenders has got more than 34,000 convicted sex offenders that appear in the National Register for Sex Offenders. So you can see that the number is too high. And clearly when you see into the statistic also, the ones that you've mentioned when we started, the number is quite alarming. And I doubt that those children as young as 10-year-old have been impregnated by their peers, like the 12-year-olds and the 14-year-olds. Many are not even sexually active. Then this shows that we have a serious problem when we look into all the studies happening.
Now, Ntombi, the rise in teenage pregnancies raises questions about the effectiveness, obviously, of existing sex education programs and initiatives. What plans does the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development have to collaborate with the Department of Education to enhance comprehensive sex education in schools? And it also raises the question around consent, healthy relationships, and obviously the fact or the suggestion that many of this sexual, or much of the sexual exploitation takes place because of poverty.
Yeah, that's correct. If you see the socio-economic challenges that many face, poverty, unemployment, at the end of the day, you know, many children would want to put food on top of their tables, but then who then brings the food to the table? Somebody that wants to exploit them for that plate of food. And as the Department of Justice, we're currently embarking on the campaign, an educational campaign which we do with school children. In May, we were engaging the principals in the Northwest, the South African Principals Association, wherein we raise awareness on what the National Register for Sex Offenders is, what are the laws that are protecting those victims of sexual offenses, and what is it that we as the community, we as the society can do to raise awareness, or whenever we realize that a sexual offense is being committed against a minor or a vulnerable person, we have an obligation to report such to the police, and the police must start investigating that which a person comes reporting.
Now, I'd imagine that rape or abuse of a minor falls under cases of gender-based violence and issues around femicide, correct? And President Cyril Ramaphosa, I think possibly a year ago, at the most, did mention that this was a second pandemic. Are you dealing with it in the way that you should deal with the pandemic?
Yes, we are. More so that we've got an amendment in place, and we are enforcing that amendment. And part of what we are doing is raising awareness, is part of enforcing those particular laws that have been brought about when the president signed them into law.
Just give us a reminder of what that amendment is, please, Ntombi.
The amendment is the one that amended how the National Register for Sex Offenders looked in the previous. It's called the Criminal Law, Sexual Offences and Related Matters Amendment Act 13 of 2021. These amendments we actually have brought into being. We have amended who gets into the register. Initially, we had people who were convicted of committing a sexual offense against children and persons with mental disabilities, but we have extended the scope to say every convicted sex offenders get included in the National Register for Sex Offenders. We have also extended the time frame upon which one can apply to have their details removed from the register. We have doubled those time frames. When a person was set to stay there for 10 years, we have doubled it to 20 years before you can actually apply to have your details removed. That is if you do qualify to have your details removed. We have included other categories of vulnerable persons, that is the older persons, the young women who are under the age of 25, who are attending university colleges, as it is defined by the Education Act. We have also included with the obligation to report that if you fail to report your awareness of being aware that a sexual offense is being committed against a vulnerable person, we have included there in a penalty that if you fail to report having been aware, then that is a criminal offense wherein if you're found guilty, you can be given a fine or both a fine and a prison sentence.
Ntombi, there's been much debate about how much effort is put towards prevention versus dealing with sexual offences once they've been committed. Now, if you were to give me a percentage of, is it 40% that goes towards prevention? Is it 60% that goes to 60% effort or resource that goes towards dealing with perpetrators? What would that ratio look like?
I think now, because we are increasing, the awareness that we are raising, we have realized that it is awareness that can, in the ultimate end, help people to deal with this pandemic. For now, I can say that the numbers for the awareness raising is rising, and I can comfortably say 60%. Because we are collaborating with other stakeholders, for example, the South African Police Service, the Department of Basic Education, Department of Health, Social Development, and the like. We are collaborating with the NPA as well to raise awareness in terms of all the pieces of legislation that we have. So I can comfortably say 60%, and we are raising that in the manner in which we are doing currently.
Ntombi Matjila, I appreciate your time, and she's the registrar for the National Register, for Sexual Offences, Department of Justice and Constitutional Development, speaking to us around issues of statutory rape